This presentation is part of a series on the Eucharist. And in this session, I'd like to speak a little bit about some symbols that we could use for the Eucharist in order to understand more fully its significance in our life. And that's important because since the Eucharist is always available, every Sunday when we go to church, and for some of us every day, it's easy to take it for granted. It's kind of like our families. We should be telling them, I love you, I forgive you, you're the most important person in my life, all the time. But sometimes we need celebrations like birthdays or Mother's Day or Father's Day to say the really important things. So let's look at the Eucharist and say, what are the important things about the Eucharist? The Eucharist is, first of all, a gift. The way we celebrate it makes it clear. At the offertory, we bring forward our bread and our wine, along with our monetary offerings, to bring them to the altar. Now, if you look at this carefully, the bread that we bring is not really all that great. It's a wafer. If I were going to a friend's house, I would bring a focaccia or a loaf of French bread, hot from the oven. And the wine that we use for altar wine is often not the best wine either. We bring God insignificant, poor gifts. And what does God do with those gifts? He transforms them into the body and blood of Christ. It's kind of like giving a millionaire a plastic model of a Mercedes-Benz, and he turns around and gives you the real thing in return. So the Eucharist is a gift, but it's more. It's also a meal. I think of the important meals that my family used to celebrate at Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. We wouldn't think of eating those meals, watching the TV, being distracted. Our being together was important. And likewise, when we come together for the Eucharist, being there is important because we're there not just for Christ, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. And that's why even during the celebration, we should treat the other people in the church as family. That has certain consequences. Number one, the way we dress when we go to the Eucharist. Some people, they're really not dressed in an appropriate way. Halter tops, short shorts, dangling earrings. And then you get the women. Some people just don't dress in a way that we would dress for those holiday meals. That's why I so love African American parishes where people dress like every Sunday is an Easter Sunday. It's a symbol of what we believe, showing up on time. That I was at a parish and I asked the usher, how's the attendance at the 11 o'clock Mass? He says, not too good, Father, but the 11:15 is much better and the 11:20 is great. People were arriving slowly, almost to the point that the last person who arrived would meet the first person to leave. That's the other thing. We stayed till the end of the meal. At these holiday meals, if we left early every single holiday, I think my parents would have said, well, next time don't bother coming unless you're going to spend the whole time with us. When we go up for communion, we should give a clear symbol of understanding what this means, that we either put our tongue out or our hands out and have a smile on our face, that being together is a good thing. To treat people in the parking lot as we leave with respect. We just received the Eucharist and we're running each other over in the parking lot. To smile at them, to greet them, because this is our family meal, but it's more. It's also a sacrifice. In the Eucharist, we commemorate and we are present at the fact that Jesus died for us. Now that's something I learned in CCD in my early years. Jesus died for my sins. But again, it's a phrase that we hear so often, we sometimes don't take into account the significance. I like to use silly examples because I read a lot of children's books, and sometimes the silly examples are the most significant. If your cousin called you today, says, "Cuz, I'm really sick. I need a kidney transplant. Can I have one of your kidneys?" We'd pray on it, we'd think on it, but probably we would give a kidney. What if that same cousin, who never called you except when that cousin needed something, says, "Cuz, I'm really sick. I need a heart transplant. Can I have your heart?" We probably say something like, gee, I'm using it right now. You can have dibs on it when I'm gone, but until then, it's mine. Jesus sees our hearts are broken, and so he gives us his. Isn't that the meaning of the Sacred Heart? He recognizes that we're dying, and he gives us life again. This is a sacrifice, but it's even more. It's presence. Jesus is truly present in that bread and that wine. We call it transubstantiation. That's a fancy term we use for a miracle beyond our understanding. But even if we don't understand it, we believe it. When churches are on fire, inevitably, somebody risks his or her life to save the Eucharist. And I'll always remember when my grandmother, Veronica, was dying one morning. We took her to hospital. She was very poor, and she was shaking from fright. And a nurse came up who happened to be a nun. She brought her the host. And she says, Ronnie, it's okay. Jesus is here for you. That instant, my grandmother calmed. And an hour later, she went home to our Lord. Because the Eucharist is the promise that Jesus will be there when we most need him. But it's even more. It's a promise for the future. Because when I get to heaven, I won't want to see Jesus under the form of bread and wine. I want to see him face to face. And the Eucharist is the promise that we will. That what we see now in mystery, we'll be able to live, experience fully. And so the Eucharist is about now, but it's also about the future. It's about Christ, but it's also about the community. It's about giving, but also about receiving.